Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro, friends. Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by CoffeeVest. Head to coffeevest.com/leadership to check out the upcoming leadership workshop that I'll be co-presenting the day before CoffeeVest starts in Tacoma, Washington on the 14th of November. coffeevest.com/leadership. Today on the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, this is a podcast for everybody out there who has decided that they want to open a cafe or a roastery or a coffee roasting business, or a coffee centric business, but you have never been in the coffee industry. Specifically and more poignantly, this is to people who are thinking about whether this is a good idea or not, and wondering what you need to consider in the process. The thing that has sparked this podcast episode is that I don't want to see any more people sink their life savings into a business without considering the true, deep, important, fundamental things that you need to consider that are so fundamentally different from how easy you think it is to start a cafe or a roastery. The situation in our industry is a lot more complex than you may want to consider. And thanks to the low barrier to entry, that makes it really easy for people to step into business ownership in our industry without having to be exposed to the very real risks that they're taking with their future financial security. Straight up, I want to let you know that pretty much the average business that's doing well is running on about 3% net profit annually. That's not great numbers. The companies that are doing extraordinarily well, and they are far and few between, are running at 10%. I haven't seen one business this year that has run at 10%. It's getting harder and harder and harder to be profitable in our industry. And that's not just in cafes. That's in cafes and restaurants and in roasteries. Roasteries are doing better than cafes for the moment. The complexities in the coffee supply chain over the coming years are going to make it increasingly more difficult for roasteries to do well as the supply chain starts to tighten up, as more and more producers start to go out of business. The challenge here is that because leaders, business owners, new people coming into the industry, people from the industry new into business ownership, because they don't have to pass some sort of a test that proves that they understand how to read buying contracts for green coffee. You're not required to understand how leases work. You're not required to understand how to read a profit and loss statement. You're not required to understand what a balance sheet is. You don't even need to know how your books are kept in order to have a business. What ends up happening is people think, well, I'm from the corporate world. Surely it can't be that hard to run a cafe. Surely it can't be that hard to have a coffee roastery. Like, I could learn how to roast coffee and bag it. And like, all of these things take common sense, and it's not that difficult. Look, I'm sure it looks very easy from the outside. And I want to let you know that the learning curve is seriously steep. The very easy part, the very, very easy part of all of this is deciding that you want to have a business and finding the capital to do it. That's the easiest part about it. And neither of those things are easy. But it is the easiest part about it. The challenges that you will come up against. Learning how to brew coffee is not one of them. That is not difficult. And you don't have to serve good coffee in order to have a business. You don't even have to roast coffee well to have a coffee roasting business. So those are not difficult things. The difficult things are going to be managing staff, keeping staff, hiring staff, knowing how to speak to staff, building a culture, knowing what your values are, understanding what your buying philosophy is. But the most difficult of just the front end side of things is going to be, how do I get customers through the door? The thing I keep seeing again and again and again and again is people magically think that for some reason, because they've opened their business, customers are just magically going to turn up. There'll be a line out the door the day that you open your business. That won't be the case, friends. You will have spent so much time trying to figure out the build out, the fit out, what your packaging is going to look like, what your branding is going to look like, all of that pretty stuff that you're going to think that by the time you come to open the business, obviously everyone in the neighborhood's seen what's happening, right? Maybe, but not likely. And even if they're curious, you need to find a way to get them there every single day. And that is not easy. It is. So getting sales and keeping staff are the two most difficult things that you are going to encounter as a new business owner. Now, getting the sales is super important in order to make sure that you can maintain cash flow. But before that comes the idea of understanding what cost breakdown analysis is. And I just went through this exercise with a client and they were like mind blown by what goes into a cost breakdown analysis. But the wonderful part about this is that this is this client's second time opening a business, and they're a partnership, and they were terrified of she in particular was terrified of having the discussion because she had felt like quite a failure. And after the discussion, she felt wonderfully empowered by understanding how a cost breakdown analysis operates. She had clear vision into what it was going to cost her to produce a pound of coffee. And therefore she understood what would need to be the base minimum amount that she would need to charge for a pound of coffee, wholesale and retail. The majority of business owners that I know do not go through that process. And so I implore you to consider that learning how to do a cost breakdown analysis is an integral part to understanding if you're going to make money and ensuring that you're going to make money. And then as a new business owner, you've got to figure out, how do I get people through the door so I can maintain enough cash flow to keep the staff that I have to convince that I understand what the fuck I'm talking about when I'm running this business and I've never had any experience in the industry. So what I'd love for you to do if you're thinking about opening a coffee business and you have no industry experience, we haven't even talked about raising starting capital and then having operating capital and all of that kind of stuff. But what I would implore you to do if you are interested in starting a business in the coffee industry and you have no industry experience is go out there, keep your day job that you currently have, and get a job as a barista or an apprentice roaster for a couple of days a week. Because when you open your business, I promise you, your learning curve will be so steep that you'll be working 7 days a week. Even if you close your cafe 2 days a week, you'll spend the other 2 days either doing the books or learning about things. So you never really have off time. You will eventually. You'll hope you will eventually. But listen, go out there and work for somebody else and feel your way. Learn on somebody else's money, but give them in employment. Give them as much as you can in passion and in commitment and in excitement and grit, and learn from them so that you can see the things that you would want to replicate versus the things you don't want to replicate. A could not give you a more essential piece of advice. If you're looking at starting a business in the coffee industry and you've never worked in the industry, keep your day job and go and get a job in the industry. You'll be working 7 days a week, but that won't be any different from when you have your own business. Also, consider taking the cafe owners, mapping a successful 10-year career as a cafe owner on our website, mapitforward.org/webinars. Peace, love, and peanut butter, friends. Have an amazing rest of your day.